The door was opened. I just went back and reread my speech on the floor because the gentleman, I hadn't done that yet. I went back and reread my speech on the floor. I stand by every word of that speech. And in it, I referenced the fact that I had just a few months prior had been in agreement with some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with respect to January 6th, which there's disagreements on our side of the aisle on some of that with respect to the votes at the time. And that I'd taken very strong disagreement and sought apology from our colleague on our side of the aisle about some of the remarks that were said, but felt that this was not.
Because what you are about to witness is not just another congressional debate. This is a collision of conviction and consequence, where every word spoken carries the weight of history. Chip Roy walks into the chamber not to play politics, but to draw a line between truth and deception. The air is tense. The silence loud as he prepares to respond to words that have shaken the House itself. This is not about sides. This is about standards, not about partisanship, but about principle, the kind of moment where the mask of diplomacy falls and the raw face of truth stares back at everyone in the room. This is the point where Washington's comfort is shattered and accountability begins to speak for itself.
In hearing, I'm no stranger to discrimination, hate speech, or threats of violence against my family and myself simply because of my identity. As a Black, visibly Muslim woman who came to this country as a refugee, I have dealt with racist, xenophobic, bigoted comments.
The House floor trembles as Ilhan Omar stands with the confidence of someone who believes her story is still untold. Her words rise sharp, defiant, filled with passion and pain, but underneath the emotion lies a tension too strong to ignore. Every syllable feels rehearsed. Every accusation feels heavy. The crowd listens, some nod. Others glare as she paints herself as the victim of prejudice. But this is not a story of one voice against many. This is a story of how responsibility cannot hide behind identity. The chamber waits for a response because everyone knows when Chip Roy stands up, the temperature of the room will change.
Reasons why the Representative Omar should be removed from this committee, but I feel like all the reasons have not just yet been stated, which is why I rise to add for the record. We've heard about the comments that were made regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli views, but I rise to add to the record that as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've sat there and heard the representative actually spew anti-American rhetoric as well. I've been in that committee room where the representative equates Israel and the United States to Hamas and the Taliban. Absolutely unacceptable for a member of that committee. I've also heard the representative equate that it is the United States' fault that there is turmoil in Venezuela.
Then it happens. Roy rises with calm power, the kind that does not shout, but shakes foundations. His words slice through noise like a blade through fog. He speaks of integrity, not image of principle, not popularity. His tone is sharp, his focus unbroken. He reminds the room that leadership is not a stage for sympathy. It is a test of character and truth. The silence in the chamber grows heavier with each sentence because deep down, every lawmaker knows he is right. This is not anger. This is precision, the kind of truth that leaves no room for excuses.
Very strong disagreement with a lot of the statements that Representative Omar has made. We've covered most of them. That some people did something is the one that really sticks in my craw pretty strongly. Raises a whole lot of flags for me. I think there are significant amount of justifications to raise issues with respect to service on the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I would not go down this road. But I'm also reminded in August of 1993, Juan Gonzalez was a batter for the Texas Rangers and was plunked by Alex Fernandez from the White Sox. And just a little bit later, Robin Ventura came to the plate for the White Sox and Nolan Ryan was on the mound. And Robin knew what was about to happen. Nolan plunked him. And then Robin Ventura charged the mound, and then Nolan Ryan beat the crud out of him on the mound. That's what happened. We all know that's what happened. It's old school baseball. Nolan Ryan defined old school baseball. This is raw politics. That's what this is. When the doors opened, then there's a question, and you have to decide what you're going to do. We're not going to unilaterally disarm. Just not going to do it. I'm tired of that. It just is what it is. Guys took a shot at someone on our team, about statements I disagreed with and took very much to task. But I've got strong disagreements with Representative Omar. I would prefer, if it were just starting from scratch, I would not choose this path. I would just say whatever stuff you all want to say. We'll say whatever stuff we want to say. Our manager will pick our team. Let's go battle it out in committee. That's what I would say. I would say that's the right place to be. But at this point in time, it is my considered judgment that, like Nolan Ryan, we've got to respond. And I'm just going to be blunt and honest about it.
But Omar will not retreat. She strikes back with fury, her words blaze. Across the hall, accusing Roy of privilege, of blindness, of hypocrisy, it is a verbal explosion that sends gasps across the chamber. What was once debate is now confrontation. Her fire feeds chaos while Roy stands unmoved like a storm meeting another. Storm, the speaker's gavel pounds, but cannot tame the uproar. The chamber burns with tension. This is no longer politics. It is a battle of perception and pride. The nation watches as composure crumbles under the weight of emotion.
And Hugo Chavez regimes. That is unacceptable. And as a New York representative, to hear the representative belittle, to try to diminish the worst terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11, 2001, as some people did something, that is unacceptable as well. And I hold the same standard for this side of the aisle that I do the other, because when another colleague on my side said something about 9/11, I also voted to have her removed from the Education Committee because I thought that was inappropriate. So I'm being consistent here, and I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability, because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our Congress to foreign nations. I yield back.
The following day brings no calm, only consequence. Roy takes the floor again, his tone steady, his message sharper than before. He lays bare the record, the words, the actions that brought them all to this point. He speaks not of vengeance, but of duty, reminding Congress that without accountability, power turns hollow. His challenge echoes through every corner of that hall. If we cannot hold ourselves to a higher standard, how can we expect America to trust us? His words hang heavy, and the silence that follows feels like judgment itself. This is where the narrative shifts from
We can sit down and figure out, by the end of this Congress, next Congress, whoever's in charge, we figure out how we're going to play ball going forward and set those rules. And I would say the same thing about open rules, closed rules, structured rules. And the ranking member could scoff. We've had X number of votes. We'll have continued debate about this stuff over time. There will be closed rules. There will be structured rules. There will be open rules. I'd like to have that debate. I'd like to have the considered judgment of the ranking member on that, and as I have debate on my side of the aisle. I'm just saying that we can figure out how to protect this institution and try to decide how to do things the right way. But in this instance, I'm going to be very open and honest about why I'm going to vote for this resolution. That's why. Again, recognizing the statements that the representative has made, I find to be highly problematic, extremely concerning, raising very serious questions from a foreign affairs perspective, as the ranking member has raised about statements made and how he feels about people being on certain committees over here.
The gentleman,
I think we should, in my opinion, we should withdraw from that battle going forward and then let each manager pick their team. And I'll be glad to yield to the gentleman from Colorado.
and I would simply say I appreciate Mr. Roy's honesty. I mean, and again, kind of similar to what Mr. Massey said previously, and not to belabor the point, because I think you've already conceded this, but why not emulate the same resolution that was used?
Then comes the vote. The nation holds its breath as each name is called one by one. The sound of democracy echoes through the chamber until the final tally. Lands like thunder, Omar is out. Her removal shocks some, but for many, it feels inevitable a moment when actions finally meet consequence. The applause erupts from Roy's side while others stare in stunned disbelief. History has just been written, not with speeches, but with decisions. It is the sound of accountability reclaiming its place in a hall long filled with excuses.
Calling this something that it is not in terms of the due process language. That's the part that I just didn't understand, because if it doesn't provide due process, why?
So,
as you said, it's partisan. It's not. And again, I appreciate the honesty on that front, and obviously the past presidents that you cited and the rest. But
I would. I don't want to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, I would just say, agreeing with the gentleman from Kentucky, putting something in the whereas clauses, outlining I think, genuine statement by the speaker on our side or whatever, saying that would be taken into consideration and viewed is something. It is something. It is not, I will be very clear, due process in the way we mean it in court. This is not a court. This is not due process in that sense. The question here is what we're going to do as members to afford each other the opportunity to speak, be heard. I'm much more in the favor of let each other speak and be heard, and then go use your First Amendment rights to go say why you think that person said something crazy or disagreeable. I would prefer to be in that space. I have no problem with that language being in the whereas clauses. I'm not going to go trumpet it as some grand, amount of due process. It's something. It's something in there, and I'd hang my hat on it and say, yeah, go argue the ethics and make the claim. But that's not what this is about. I mean...
Outside the Capitol, the reaction spreads like wildfire. Headlines explode across every network. Social media becomes a battlefield of opinion. Some call it justice, others call it revenge. But the truth stands tall. Roy becomes a symbol of discipline, the man who drew the line when no one else dared. While Omar faces a storm, she can no longer control every interview. Every statement feels like an attempt to rewrite what the world already saw. The balance of perception has shifted. The story is no longer about her. It is about what happens when truth refuses to bow to pressure.
And I yield back.
Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know what gets me fired up? When people pretend that what's happening in Washington is just politics as usual. What we witnessed in that video wasn't just another speech. It was a raw, unfiltered moment of truth from someone who's been in the trenches long enough to know how deep the rot goes. Let me break it down for you, because what he said matters, and what it means matters even more. We had a representative from Texas standing tall, owning the truth that this wasn't just about Ilhan Omar's past comments or her seat on a committee. This was about a door being kicked wide open years ago, and now folks like us finally walking through it with eyes wide open and fists clenched with resolve. He laid it out, plain as day. The Democrats set the precedent. They changed the rules. They launched filibusters against Hispanic and black conservative judges. Judges who were more qualified than half the folks sitting on benches today. Remember Miguel Estrada, Priscilla Owen, Janice Rogers Brown? Blocked, sidelined, ignored, not for what they did, but for who they were and what they believed. But now, when we push back, suddenly it's a crisis? Give me a break. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. You can't preach about fairness while you're swinging the bat, and then cry foul when we finally step up to the...
Weeks later, the dust begins to settle, but the echoes remain. The confrontation between Roy and Omar becomes a chapter etched in the nation's memory. Documentaries, debates, and podcasts dissect every second. but the core message stays unshaken. Words have weight and leadership. Has a price. Roy's stand reminds America that courage is not found in comfort, but in confrontation. This moment changes Congress forever, reminding every member that accountability is not a weapon. It is a duty, and that, in the end, truth, no matter how uncomfortable, will always have the final word.